Okay, I don't know if I've given you an updated package. Let me just. Save as a separate file, just to be on the safe side. Let's see, this is going to be. I need a folder. 502. Okay. So I'll do all my work in this folder right here, so I can, if I didn't give you the updated package, I can then export without the scripts that we're going to put on the scene. All right, so this is the PW example scene right now. I've given you basically a block in the world, and I've given you 2 of the cars right now. Yeah, player 1 pawn manager object. Here we go, and I've got the player controller. So I've got player controller, PW player controller, PW pawn, and then here's the other player 2 pawn. So they've been set up correctly with the new, the version of the yeah. You see, with the correct number. So the scene is set up for you right now with the latest version of the input polar. I just want to check. Where is it? Here it is. Let me see. Let's just check the script just quickly. Okay, 1 is input. Okay, so again, gamepad. Maybe that's not correct. 1. Okay, so this is definitely, I don't think it's the same version of the input polar, but that's okay. This is WSAD is to move, QEZK, and this is IJKL, and this is UONP being those. So was press this frame, was press this frame. Okay, is press. So okay, so these are setting as buttons, and this is the keypad. So far so good. Let's close as many of these as possible. We don't need all of these open. Just go. Close all tabs. We'll come back. Okay. The big thing that we're doing right now, we did set up. We set up. Let's go to the player controller because we added something here just to remind you guys. One of the things that we did is, so right now the player controller is taking has a pawn object, and on start it's going to try and control that. That's not how we are going to go. Later we're actually going to get rid of this. We'll actually spawn in. We'll actually spawn in a pawn for it to control. So one of the things that we've done here in the player controller, we have basically saying on process input, fire 1 is going to go, north button is going to go, and then the vertical horizontal, basically we're using the left stick right now. Y, moving forward and turning basically on the left stick. So we've got vertical, horizontal, fire 1, which basically all of these are basically just getting the PW pawn class and converting it from the pawn. Basically, converting it from controlled pawn is a pawn type, so we're converting it to the PW pawn class, which these functions are all linked in. In theory, we could go and grab all of this right here, and in theory, do a fire 2, Now it's going to yell, it should yell because I don't think we've implemented. Is there fire 2? Let's take a look. So there is the PW pawn. Did we? Oh, we did implement all of them. So don't need to do this, but I'm just going to do this just for the sake of argument of having them all done. Fire 3. Fire 4. So just for the sake of having them all done. But right now, this is the process input function that is basically being called by the player controller. We don't have a controlled pawn. We don't bother processing input. And then here is button north, fire 1. Current input button north. Because we're passing, in this case, we're passing the value, the Boolean value. So the idea here is that the player controller is passing its information to the passing its information to the pawn that it is controlling. Let's take a look at the player controller just quickly. I think yeah. So we are did we process input? We in theory could put the player controller class on. So if we didn't want to deal with all that overhead, we could just in theory could put a player control. In fact, do I do this with player to player? Yeah. So I think I'm actually going to go and I might debating whether I should do this 2 ways. I'm going to do the first way right now. So the goal, like if we go look at our document, so again, we're using, all this should be here already. You've got 2 so the first thing they want you to do is create 2 projectile prefabs. And the idea is that, so again, one of the scripts given to you is the projectile. Where is it? Here it is. And it's basically what's the damage amount, what's its movement speed, what is lifetime, has an internal rigid body. It actually adds the rigid body and sets, sets its transform speed times its movement speed. This should be game object. Destroy on lifetime. It has the trigger. Does it hit another actor? You know, if it's another actor, to have it take damage. We'll come back and enable this line later in another lap. And then it's got basically on destroy, on death. So the big thing here, let's build these right now. I'm gonna create a 3D object. I'm gonna create a sphere. Put it 1 in the sky. Okay, I'm gonna put this 10 forward. And we need to note that these guys are rotated on their x-axis right now. So we'll need to make a change to them in a moment. But I'm just going to basically go to my common assets and crayons. And I'll go up here. Here we go. And I am going to make great empty parent. So this is going to be projectile 1. I'm just going to call this the model, and this will allow me to basically modify this without having to play around with the scale here. So I'm just going to do 0.2, 0.5, 5. Let's go 1. There we go. So I've got oblong bullets a la Mega Man. The Sphere Collider, I'm not going to worry too much about it because again, I think we're doing a top-down view on everything, so not that big of a deal. I am going to basically duplicate this. I'll call this projectile 2. Bring it out and move this over 5. And I'll make this one red. Just this. And I'll make this go to the model. I'll make it a circle. Just so that we have basically a difference between these two. So we got 2 different projectiles. Let's go back to my classes. Here, these are the framework. Here's PW game. I'll add a projectile class to both of these. Projectile number 1, damage amount. I'll crank that up to 75. Movement speed of 10. Lifetime of, I'll do 10 as well. So make this low. Actually, to make this the fast projectile. So I'll do 35. Yeah. Movement speed. I'll go back to 20, and then I'll keep this at 5. Let's go to the other one. We'll make this 75, 5, 10. So I've got 2 different projectiles, effectively. I'm going to go to my Lab 2 folder for my purposes, and I'm going to drag these in. So these are my projectiles. So one of the first things that we are going to do is we are going to create a new script. This is going to be Carpon. All right. Where's Lab 2? There we go. All right, and the first thing I'm going to do right here is going to be a public game object spawn point and public game object projectile prefab. Don't need start and update for this class. And also, this is going to inherit off of the PW pawn, that PW pawn class that I've showed you. So it's all right. Let's jump back. Let's actually go to the sake of first pawn. Did we? Yeah, we did create that. So that is projectile spawn point, and we're going to use 1 on this one, and then on the second one, put up its model, projectile spawn point, and then projectile 2. So we've got some difference between these 2. We have the PW pawn script here. We're going to take this off, because we're going to overwrite. Basically, we're going to pull it all together in the pawn script. So we had the let me see. I must have not removed it from the player 2 pawn, but I did it from the first one. So no big deal. So all right, so far so good. If remember, there were 3 functions that we wanted to override, and it's fire 1, the horizontal, and the vertical. Okay. Let me see. The big thing with the vertical, so the horizontal, this is pretty straightforward. We're not gonna bother with any of the bases because we're gonna fully override what they do. All right. This one's easy. This is gonna be, again, we had that factory function. What's the actor prefab? Again, this is going to be projectile prefab, projectile point. I'm going to actually change this to a transform, just so that, I mean, basically we'll assign a game object to it, but this will cut down some of the code. So this is going to be position, projectile point dot rotation. And we have the owner property. This is, yep. And that should, let me try and, all right, let me put this on multiple lines. So you wouldn't put this on multiple lines. I'm just doing it just so we can see this better on the projector and the recording. There's nothing that we're doing at the moment with the projectile prefab. We're just firing it right now. Horizontal is going to be easy. Game object transform dot rotation, rotate, vector 3 up times value times I think I need to put in public public float move speed is equal to, we'll do 10, we'll do 5, 7, lucky 7. Rotation rate, and this again we need time dot delta time. And just so this is readable, I'm gonna So normally we would put this on multiple lines, but I'm going to do it this way because of my limited screen that I have right now. So vertical, again, this is going to go to the rigid body, and I believe look at the PW pawn just quickly one more time. Is it? Just quickly. Controller, become released. Yeah, okay. So we do need, in this case, to do rigid RB. And I believe, let's check. Owner take damage. Okay, so we can, in theory, use onStart. So we are, yeah, we need to do a on. Sorry, start. RB is equal to use game object, get component, rigid body. So in this case, we're getting, the rigid body is assigned to it already. And that will allow us again down here to basically do rigid body for RB, sorry, linear velocity. It's going to be equal to the game object transform dot forward times value times move speed. And let's just break this down. And literally, this is the three functions we needed to, again, it's all connected together. We know that we looked at our, here's our player controller. Input basically is using fire1, vertical, horizontal, and all these are basically passing whatever value that we get here to the pawns version of it. There'll be a version of process input. I'm trying to think. Well, let's just play with this version right now. Save the pawn script. We'll jump back, and we press play. So right now, the pawn is not rotated correctly. So let's go back in. I think I need to rotate the model 90 degrees, not on that axis. Negative 90. There we go. So that makes you not a so 2 on that axis. I mean, we can in theory probably go back 1.5, but I'll leave it 2 for right now. Let's go back and now change U. Again, this is going to be a negative 90 in that direction. And then, of course, 0, 2. Now let's grab, see. So put you negative 2, and we'll make you a positive 2. Put these on the x-axis. All right. Because I've made these as projectile as prefabs, I can remove them from the scene. So there we go. Here's player 1, player 2, player 1 shooting, player 1 shooting. So the one thing that I screwed up with on these is they're creating, the projectile is creating the prefab, which is interesting. What I didn't do, where's the projectile? Use gravity. Oh, I need to go to, hold on. Where's its model? Let me jump into. What I didn't do is I didn't turn these on as triggers. Okay. Save the scene, save the project. we go. Gravity. Why is this? Let's drop this down to 10. So this one is fine. Let's see. What is this colliding with? So let's just do a debug. .log. Actually, I should do hit the floor already. That's interesting. Just trying to see why is it hitting the floor right away. Is it because the projectile? I think I need to go. Okay. I'm going to remove this component. And I'm going to add in, this is going to seem weird, but this is going to give us a little more control. I'll use a box collider. And it's going to wrap around it sufficiently. So I think what was happening, set as a trigger. Yeah, so I'm going to change the box, change it to a box basically to make it easier to work with and not worry about the sphere. Again, we're in a top-down view, so we're in a 2D plane anyway, so we're not too worried about stuff. And let's jump back. There we go. Okay, so what I thought was basically the sphere collider was just too big. Don't be afraid to do hacks. Again, games are smoke and mirrors. If you want to know why games are smoke and mirrors, go look at Randy Pitchford. He was a Vegas magician before he started in the game industry. And he does card tricks. There's actually a video of him at DICE, I think, doing a card trick, doing magic tricks on stage as a point. So go look that up. But I can go turn into my. You can see that they are hitting the car model. I can go in. So the goal right here is, again, not about, again, it's about getting these cars moving around using that script. So let's go in and let's just, so I'm going to go back and I go to, let's see, I think it's the player controller. Yeah, so the player controller is one that's calling process input. I'm going to put in a new public bool. Does perform input processing. I'm going to set this to true. And I'm basically going to go down. I'm just going to wrap this around in here. If so again, nothing has changed. So nothing's changed based on what we've done here. Okay. I'm going to create a new behavior school. This is going to be a car pawn new school. I'll just call it pawn new. All right. So we know that the pawn does not have an update. And that therefore PW pawn doesn't have an update. We are still going to go grab. So I am going to grab everything that's in here. Here's PW pawn new. Here we go. I'll take out start. And we are going to, again, don't know why, there we go. Okay. In this case, we're actually going to do the update. I'm going to go grab the PW player controller. And essentially, we don't need to worry about if we have a control pawn. In fact, it'll be if we don't have a. We'll change what we have here, but essentially, what we're going to go grab in here. This is going to be update. All right, so we don't have a control pawn. We don't have a. So we don't have a controller. Don't bother processing input. And we're going to make our life a little bit easier. We're going to do data, input data. Let's grab the name. It's going to be equal to our controller dot input. Okay, there we go. Get input card. So the goal here is that, hey, this is more akin to, like in Unreal, we were starting now building with a pawn has its input information. So what this then looks like, let's go to, so let's remove the car pawn here, and let's put the new one in here. We need to go up to player controller 2 and turn off its player processing. It's still going to grab the pawn. That's what we still want right now. But at this point right now, what we're doing is basically, let's see. Let's press play. Let's see how things go. So I'm not getting errors. So player 1, no problems. Player 2, no problems. Turning. And what we didn't do, hold on. Go back to, we forgot to assign the projectile point and the prefab. Let's go grab. So we've done this 2 different ways. We've got the older school style way of doing things, but also this newer style way of where the pawn is actually knows it's how to grab its information and do what it needs to do. This is probably the first time I've done this, where the pawn is actually just grabbing the information. That is your second part of the assignment. Basically, it's about managing, handling these, essentially these hierarchies of classes, and how are you handling them? And again, I just showed you 2 different ways how you could do this using what was, old school Unreal Engine and new school Unreal Engine. I mean, we are literally scaling from the Epic framework, the gameplay framework, over in Unreal, to produce what we're doing here. But you have to sit down with your game and say, what are my components of my game? All right. Right now, my game consists of cars and projectiles, and then the level. In fact, we could go in and actually, if we go back to the projectile script. In fact, let's do that right now. Let's just enable the damage right here, right now. So take other actor. This is from the actor class. Take damage. Who's the source of the damage? This class is the source of the damage. How much are we doing? We, let me see, what is it? Oh, and I've got to flip. Hold on. So who is causing the damage? The owner. Again, and the actor has an owner property that we are assigning when we spawn. So we spawn this. Let's go back to PW pawn. Sorry, car pawn. Again, when we spawned, again, remember, use that factory. We sent the owner. So we sent the controller of the car pawn, and this was going to get set on. So when we get, so this basically is setting up that class. We go all the way back to, where is it? It's in info. So we go all the way back to info. Where's factory? Here it is. Instantiate. So here's the instantiate line. So it creates it. And then if new actor, and that's this is the property that we're looking here. So by default, if we can do this without a new actor, I mean, without the controller. But when we pass it, it basically grabs the actor class out of it and then assigns the owner property there. And like the instantiate, it returns back the new actor. So we pass that on to the pawn. We use that. Then we can tell basically based on that. And I'm gonna let me just check date damage type. Oh, thanks Adobe. And I'm just gonna basically I'm gonna put in a null for right now. Do we even have a damage tape? Let's put in. I'll just put in base damage type for right now. So again, the idea here is that we are setting the damage info class. Is the idea here is that we can set properties of our damage. Like, is it, you know, as your game gets more complex, you could be like, it's fire, it's an elemental type. It is, does it jib? Is it an auto kill? Is it all sorts of different things? We'll talk more about damage, I think, in another. I know we'll talk a little bit about that, but basically the idea here, I did flip around these two properties, so. Then I can go to click in. Oh, press play. In this case, I'm going to just turn. And you can see that right now it's ignoring damage. Let's see if it takes. I don't think I've set a process damage. It is hitting it. It is process. It is damaging the player. Have I not done any process damage? Let's see. Let's take a look. Yeah, pawn doesn't have any of that. Actor. Let's take a look at the actor. So it's ignoring it. Event info, damage event info, process damage. So right now here is, it's doing the damage log stuff here. I don't think I've done process damage anywhere else. So this is in the actor class. Next would be PW pawn. Yeah, and I haven't done the process damage here. So I'm gonna let's say for the sake of argument, let's do override process damage. I will not return this right away. But I'll call it. I'll just do return true for right now. But we'll say for the argument right now, health, yeah, minus health, minus equals value. And I'm not sure why I'm using capital letters here, but oh, we fix that another time. If health is less than 0, let's just say. So there's two ways we could handle this. I'm going to go about handling this with a, again, there's going to be an obvious I'll make this public, void on death. Now I could make this virtual. I can, it's going to be a debug.log. game object dot name plus dead. And I'm also going to basically say ignores damage is equal to true. So we don't take any more damage. Now, there are games where you can take more damage. Like you're dead and you can still shoot into it. We call that the games that allow you to do that. Basically, they call that you can confetti the pawn if you want to do that. You take more than or you do damage that's more than twice as amount your health negative your health value. You go into you blow up essentially. We're not going to worry about that right now. But in this case, I mean, we could go call on death. But I'm going to do this in a little different way. I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring in using Unity engine events. Public Unity event death event. And so in my case, I'm going to go in and be like death event dot invoke. And so what I'm going to do in this case, let's press jump back. So pawn one does not ignore damage. And I'm going to go in and basically car pawn on death. And then I can go in. You can see that player one right now is dead. Now player two doesn't have this enabled because we haven't added. Player two doesn't. We'll have to add. You see, this is in the PW pawn. Oh, actually, we can hold on. Let's go back to player two pawn. Player two pawn. And back to the pawn new on death. There we go. Again, we put it in its parent, so that's why it's there. You are going to have to lay out your classes, understand who's doing what and why. All right. Your the ultimate class that is your pawn that you're going to be using could have multiple inheritances. All right. I mean, like in Unreal, like a lot of the humanoid characters is an actor, then it's a pawn, then is the character, and then the class that you actually implement. And in some cases, you might have multiple layers beyond that, depending on your game. I mean, if we were looking at NES ice hockey, all right, there are four ice for each team. There are 4 skaters, and you can pick which each skater individually. And there's basically, is it small, medium, or large? So there would be a generic, class for small, cleric class for medium, generic class for hard. I mean, sorry, small, medium, and large. Yes, there are multiple teams, but those teams are basically color swaps. You could, if you wanted to, if you wanted to go fully detailed. I mean, like the American big is different from the Russian big. Again, we're talking about NES, so this is Cold War era, still early 80s, so Soviet Union's still around. the Swedish version and the Canadian are different models. In fact, that's how Marvel Alliance does their costume swaps. They're actually not just palette swaps; they're full model swaps. And that is something that had to be tracked for all of the characters across uh, current what was current gen at the time and then next gen at the time. So current gen was PlayStation 2, the original Xbox, and then next gen was PC, Xbox 360, and the PlayStation 3. So they were definitely differences between the different platforms. Um, so the model and the skin, the materials that went on the model were basically for each one was different. We had to track that for all the minions as well. Was their model done? And that's basically just giving you a heads up in production. This is a production question. Basically, there was someone who basically had a spreadsheet for every single character that was in game. Every model, every character, whether it was a player character or a boss or a minion or whatnot, they were in the spreadsheet. And that he was going through and making sure they were all set up correctly. And that they were assigned correctly as well, because for the longest time, one of the first looks that was completed was the Skrull homeworld. So the Skrull princess was the default model for a lot of things. So he was also trying to make sure that they were also assigned correctly to the entity was assigned, the model was assigned correctly to the entity it's supposed to be using. So, did I do this while running? No. Okay. So here I can go. I can turn on my player 2. And player 2 is ignoring damage. Sure. Let me stop. There we go. Turn off ignores damage. There we go. So again, there's a lot of code here for you. You can see right now, he's dead. Hooray! He's not taking any more damage. You can only see that. Pawn 2, I'm dead. Again, zombie creature right now, and now I have 2 zombie creatures at the moment that are ignoring damage while beyond their health point. We can worry about that. That is another lecture about, okay, what do we do when I die? Because there's more there to do. Again, part of what's going on is that we'll want to spawn. Each of the player controllers are going to want to spawn their vehicle into the world, their vehicle type. There's also going to be a spectator. So I'm giving you a heads up on what's coming in a future lecture. Any questions about what you need to do? I may have given you the lecture for the next lab. Just check. Come on. Come on, Canvas. It's a Word document, 18K. Okay. Google Docs. New document. File. Open. Upload. There we go. So the lawyer's got money. I know one of these. I've got videos here. I think one of them is the Matrix scene where they do guns, lots of guns. I know one of them is Zevon Warren. You probably know him better for Werewolves One for London. Recently was just put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. After he's been dead for quite a while now, but he's put in the. But basically, yeah. So we already have health being tracked. So I basically shown you how to. Yeah, we did the process damage here. Okay, go on. It's asking you to be like, okay. So what this is doing is asking you to add the update process damage, which is essential. What I'm doing is kind of funny. Is I ask you to make another projectile. So you've got like 3 different projectiles, and then I basically ask you to put them in a list. And then, so fire 3 is next projectile, fire 4 is previous projectile, and fire 2, I have you play a sound effect. Sound horn. So I've kind of gone over the core of what you need to do. I mean, basically, the goal here, let's actually go do it. Let's implement this at the PW pawn level. So the car pawns are what we inherit from the car pawns are not going to have to worry about that. So ultimately, the first one here is going to be a public list of game objects. This is going to be the projectile list. And then we need a public int dial list index and set that to 0. And then fire 3 is going to be next projectile, and this will be previous projectile. And so this is going to be projectile list index minus if the projectile list is actually less than 0. Well, index is going to be equal to the list count minus 1. And this, because this is a mathematical operation, I'm just going to make sure this is in here. Again, next projectile would be projectile list index plus plus if this index greater than or equal to the projectile list dot count. We'll set that to 0. And then finally the where did we put the It's going to get interesting. Did we put it in the car pawn? So I'm going to grab the projectile prefab, and I'm going to grab this out of here. I'm going to move it down a level. And the reason for this is so that we have access to it. Here we go. So since we're doing this here at the projectile, so I'm going to just drop this here. I'm also going to move the death event to the bottom. And I'm also going to move the make our lives easier. This is just to make our lives easier in terms of looking at stuff. So the projectile prefab is going to be here at the PW pawn level. So I need to go into, so I moved it out of car pawn. Let me save that here. I need to go back to new car pawn and remove it out of here now. And it's saying about, because I've duplicated it, so. Let's go back to the PW pawn class. Cool. So rather than setting the projectile prefab, well, I mean, we'll set the prefab, but what we can now do is, now we can save that, jump back to Unity. And I've got this running, that's why. Okay, so everything's okay. Let's go to the projectile list. And I'll put 2 in here. So I'm in player 2. So I'm going to do projectile 2 first and player projectile 1 second. Go to them. I'll do projectile 1 first here, and then and I can actually go and let me see. So this allows us to do so prefab is going to be equal to projectile list at the index. And you drop this down here. And for the sake of argument, the car pawn, which again, these have the starts, I'm just going to drop this code in right here. Just for the sake of argument of making sure that they are set up. That'll allow me to go into, again, let's do just car pawn number 1. I can go in, I'm going to just set this to none. And it won't be an issue because once I press play, you'll see that that will get populated. And the one thing that I'm not doing right now, so let's go to PW pawn, because this is where, no, is going to be in PW player controller. What I'm not doing right now is going in, I've not gone south. East. No, this is going to be east. Sorry. Hold on. South. 3, 4. Okay. And I need to grab this code right here and go back to my Carpon new. Add that in here. There we go. Sake of argument, I am going to, I'll leave it alone for right now. So again, projectile 1. Okay, so that is southeast. What am I? Fire 2. I gotta figure out what I'm, who's mapped to what. Let's go back to the input poller just quickly. E is south. Oh, okay, I'm missing a west here. There we go. East is. Oh, I'm done. I've done these silly. Hold on. Okay, Z and C and period and N are the two keys here. All right, cool. So you can see it's flipping and it's flipping backwards. So it is working what we're looking for. Let's take a look at 2 N in period. So we got the projectile list. The only thing I haven't done is, make a silly sound effect play. Not too worried if you don't do that. But the big idea is that, hey, we can change, the projectile prefab here, the previous lab, we did it in the Carpon. We moved it back, because we decided to control that at PW pawn level. We moved that variable back here to have access to it because we wanted to have the list and the index here as well. So basically, I've given you the part for lab 2B and the part for lab 3. So we'll get those. The idea is to get the idea here with lab 3 is to get the projectile up and running, take damage, know that you're taking damage. All right. I did it with a Unity event. You could have very easily made this on death function virtual. And instead of calling on death invoke, called the on death here and invoked, the version that would have been overridden. Both work, but I wanted to use a Unity event this time around. So when you when I go to new car pond now, or new car the car pond, I can do whatever I want. I can call multiple functions if I need to. Anything else before I stop the recording? This is pretty straightforward what you need to do right now. Show of hands, are you guys okay with what's going on? Yep. Hands. Oh, only. Okay. Couldn't see your hand. Yeah. It was in front of your face. Okay. I'll just check. All right. I'm going to stop the recording here.